So I started with so again. All right, I have nothing today. Norris teach science here. Mr. Norris talking. This is another edition of biology, and we're still talking about genetics. And today I present something called karyotypes. And so by the end of this video, I can read karyotypes for different genetic disorders. There's multiple genetic disorders out there, but we're going to cover a couple of them in here. Just a thought about genetic disorders. I have talked about them before with sex-linked genetic disorders, but some genetic disorders don't result from a trait, but they result because you're missing or you have extra chromosomes. And to determine these, we're going to actually have to look at what we call karyotypes to see if this is the case. So a karyotype is a chart of someone's chromosomes. So they take a cell and they get the chromosomes out of there and they replace the chromosomes with their homologous pair or matching pair. Remember, they're similar chromosomes, but they're not identical. And it's based off the size of the chromosome and the banding that's on the chromosome. And they line them up from biggest to smallest for chromosome pairs 1 through 22, known as your autosomes. And then the last pair of chromosomes, chromosome pair 23, is used to determine your sex or your sex chromosomes. And we covered this before. XX is female and XY is male. So if we look at this picture over here, this is a karyotype. You can see all the chromosomes are paired up. And then this last pair down here is the sex chromosomes. These sex chromosomes determine your gender in a generic, general sense. If you look here, this one has an X and has a Y, so this person is male. Now, when you're missing a chromosome, it's called monosomy. I hope I said that right. This is when you're missing a chromosome. Means for humans, we have less than 46 chromosomes total. And most times it's lethal if you don't have enough chromosomes. And they either don't make it to term, or if they are born, they don't survive long after birth. The exception to this is something called Turner syndrome. So if you look at this karyotype over here, this is for Turner syndrome. They're missing a sex chromosome. They only have one. So let's talk a little bit about Turner syndrome, also known as XO. What this means is that they're missing one of their X chromosomes. So this is a female, and they're missing one of their X chromosomes, so they don't have all the genetic material they need to be considered female. They usually are short-statured, have some web feet, and are sterile. Do you know what that means? Do you know what it means to be sterile? Sterile means that you cannot reproduce. You do not have the material to reproduce. In females, that means you don't have eggs or you don't release your eggs. And in males, that means that you don't release sperm during sexual intercourse. They also have very few female characteristics, and that would be Turner syndrome. If you want to know more about Turner syndrome, I suggest you go research it a little bit more. All these genetic disorders are very interesting in my mind, some are sad and some are interesting, so I suggest you just go look them up. Trisomy, instead of having a missing chromosome this time, this means you have an extra chromosome, or instead of having a pair, you have 3 copies. If you look at this karyotype to the side, we already have it circled here, but this person, for Plateau syndrome, I think that's how you say it, don't quote me on that, they have 3 chromosome 13s. So they have a disorder here because they have an extra chromosome. Some other ones are like Down syndrome or Klinefelter syndrome. I know I'm going to talk about Down syndrome, but Klinefelter syndrome is actually very interesting as well. And if you don't know much about it or you've never heard about it, you may want to go look it up. It's a very interesting disorder. But let's talk a little bit about Down syndrome. Down syndrome, or AKA trisomy 21, what that means is that that person has 3 chromosomes on 21st pair. This person also, if you look, is male. And it it results in some physical limitations and sometimes some mental limitations when they have Down syndrome. If you are in a school, you probably have seen someone in your school that has Down syndrome. Um, then what causes these monosomies or trisomies are something called non-disjunction. I talked about it a little bit when I did a mutation video for when we talked about DNA. But what happens here is during, say, division with meiosis, because you have to inherit this stuff. One of the cells, you can see it right here, I'm highlighting it. The chromosome doesn't split correctly. So one cell gets less chromosomes and the other cell would get more chromosomes. So one, and since these are gametes, when they go in and fertilize with another gamete, it makes the number wrong. But that's a little bit about karyotypes and some genetic disorders. Again, go over to Google, learn about some of these genetic disorders. Some are very interesting. Some will actually make you cry. I have had a student that I've given a project to where they had to research genetic disorders. They picked this one. I told them that it was going to be rough, and they told me in their little reflection that it was hard to research this information because of all the stuff that happens with it. But again, always educate yourself, and I hope you learned something today. And this is Mr. Norris, and he is signing out.